I met them online. Said they had this idea, this ritual that means you can cross over into the afterlife.
We figured a way of doing it.
We are talking about the movie Pet Graveyard. This one is directed by Rebecca Matthews and written by Suzy Spade. Now, this was originally made as a movie called Grim Reaper, which is actually far more of a kind of a fit for the actual film itself. And this one comes to us in April of 2019 by High-Octane Entertainment. Now, the name was obviously kind of changed to Pet Graveyard to coincide with the 2019 remake of the Stephen King movie Pet Sematary, and that too has a supernatural cat like this one, and obviously methinks that's no accident, and obviously designed to get those mockbuster dollars, y'all. But anyway, this one actually has more in line with the movie Flatliners, and I would say it's a cross between Flatliners meets Final Destination in a way. So what we have a group of these three individuals, one of which is this kind of our main male character, is some type of YouTuber who does a variety of different kind of stunts and whatnot. And to get views, literally he says this, to get views, he is deciding to try and get someone ultimately to choke him, so he ultimately dies for a few minutes to visit the afterlife. And he gets these two other people to kind of go along with him, and each of these three have got a reason, someone to kind of contact, of the other side. And then they have this fourth person who is the sister of the main guy, who is a kind of trainee nurse to ultimately try and revive them. So of course they decide to kind of go in this particular graveyard and do this kind of incantation, and obviously off they go to kind of like the afterworld, where they think they are meeting their loved ones, and then they are brought back. However, they seem to have brought something back with them in the form of what appears to be the Grim Reaper, who decides now they visited the kind of the afterworld, he wants them back there. So what happens? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. So let's talk Pet Graveyard. So like I said, don't be expecting anything to do with Pet Sematary. It's not following that story at all. So what works for me? Okay, so first of all, the whole cat thing. Let's talk about that. So obviously in the Pet Sematary you have the cat church, who is kind of featured on the marketing material. And here you have this kind of cat, which is really nothing to do with the plot, if I'm honest. It's just that the Grim Reaper has this kind of this harbinger, basically, this kind of familiar. I actually kind of quite liked it though. It almost gave you like a warning that kind of the Grim Reaper was going to turn up, and they've got this kind of like this skinny kind of hairless cat, which I actually thought was pretty fun. It was kind of quite a fun little almost warning to these people that something was going to happen. I thought it was pretty good. So outside of that, there are some. The acting here is a little bit of a mixed bag, and I'm going to come on to it as to why in a minute. But I thought our main character, Lily, our female character, was actually fairly well acted. But she's hampered by one thing, which I'll come on to. But I thought she was actually quite well acted, as is the character Zara. So there was some bad acting. There was some okay acting here from some of the kind of from the cast. We'll touch on it again in just a second, but yeah, the acting from some of the cast at least was okay, to an okay standard. Put a little asterisk on it because there's something wrong with it. However, I thought the plot was quite kind of easy to follow. It didn't kind of try and make it too convoluted. I think it follows on a fairly kind of good arc. It doesn't kind of like lose you in any kind of like babbly talk and anything like that. It's fairly kind of well directed. I think the pacing is relatively good in this film. Obviously it's a low budget film, so you can't be expecting anything kind of like too with bells and whistles. I thought the pacing was okay. I thought the music was good. For a low budget experience, it wasn't so bad in regards to just the kind of watch. So let's talk about what doesn't work. And this is one big thing for here, and I do not really understand the decision to do this. So they have decided to make these actors, who are all of whom are British, talk in an American accent, most of them anyway, and it is so distractingly bad. This is why I'm saying the acting is hard to judge, because 90% of the cast are talking in this in a kind of faux American accent, which kind of just goes in and out and in and out, and it's like, what? I mean, some of them sometimes it's hard to even tell it's American. I cannot understand the reason for it. I mean, it must have been that they want to try and market that it's in America. They think that the only way to do that is to have like an American character, but it's so bad. It's so bad, and no one pulls it off. But there are degrees of how crap it is, and there are some real bad ones. Like I said, our main character Lily, I think, does the best job, and because of that, I feel she's the strongest actress. But even she doesn't really can't quite get that accent just right. But there are some horrendous examples of it. So it's really hard to judge the acting, because everyone seems bad. Because they're doing this accent, but I think if you kind of take that away, it's maybe not as bad as it seems, if that makes sense. But it's a real, because once you notice it, you can't unnotice it, if that makes sense. You're constantly just kind of like being distracted by people trying to do accents, and you just think, oh, you can't let go. So yeah, that wasn't a good decision. One maybe nitpick thing that just kind of bugged me a little bit is we're meant to believe these people go under for 3 minutes, yet they seem to be under for like 30 minutes. It's a little bit silly, even kind of with wonky film logic. The other thing that I found a little odd is, so we have the Grim Reaper that kind of comes back into our world, but I think he looks too corporeal. I mean, he's kind of using like an axe and a knife, things he's picking up around here, with like modern leather gloves on. So it's almost like if the Grim Reaper was a slasher. So if you're a slasher fan, then I guess it's cool. But because it's meant to be from a supernatural origin, I would have kind of preferred it'd be a bit more mysterious almost, and kind of maybe we didn't see specifically how he. I mean, there's one time he kind of just puts his hand on them and sort of burns them, which I thought was was an okay effect. But outside of that, he's kind of using knives and kind of things like this and axes. To me it didn't seem necessary. And for some reason he's wearing a big crucifix. Again, I don't really understand the relevance of that, if I'm honest, because it kind of suggests some type of religious meaning. There really isn't any in this. So there you go. I mean, I did like, one thing I forgot to mention in the positives, actually, I actually like these scenes where they go under and kind of have this kind of like, this kind of death like sort of zone, if you know what I mean. So it's just all black everywhere. And one of the things that struck me, which was maybe a little bit of a missed opportunity, was that when they meet the people, when they meet the kind of whoever they want to meet in this kind of world, they kind of say they're just on their own. And I just thought that kind of like, that feeling of loneliness would have really been a kind of a really kind of, if you would have known that, if you would think your loved one was all in this kind of blackness or on their own, you'd just be in this kind of like massive state of despair and kind of, oh my God, how bad is this going to be? You're just kind of in blackness the rest of your kind of like your consciousness forever. And that's horrifying. So that thought of it was kind of kind of there, but it was never really kind of touched upon any further. I almost feel like they kind of stumbled onto that and didn't really kind of realise they had probably quite a good concept for that, because it was never really addressed, if that makes sense. But to me that was kind of like, oh geez, this is kind of like quite a scary thought if you're just in this kind of infinite blackness forever. So when we get to our kind of our corporeal kind of state, we have this kind of Grim Reaper there. Like I said, I quite like the fact that we have this cat there. The Grim Reaper is ultimately a little disappointing. It's kind of shown in kind of maybe a little bit too overlit, and like I've said, just looks like a dude in black robes. Again, it's a budgetary constraint, I get it, but it's I would have maybe kept it in darkness and just maybe we don't put him in the you put people over in the cloak or something, so we don't really see what happens. To me, that would have been a little bit more effective, I think, than hitting people with a hammer and things. Anyway, but I think the movie is relatively kind of, I mean, for a low budget, just basically a kind of a Pet Sematary Flatliners kind of rip-off. It's not a bad effort. There's just some kind of like odd choices that are made here. The movie isn't particularly kind of graphic in any way. There's no real kind of gore. There's a couple of minor bits of gore. It's not really scary at any point. I mean, it's kind of like a passable kind of low budget kind of horror film. But it's kind of you have to appreciate obviously the fact that it's kind of obviously running at a low budget, but nonetheless the end result is, it's okay. It's okay. I feel for horror fans who are used to a kind of a low budget movie. Other audiences may be a little bit disappointed who obviously buy this thinking it's going to be Pet Sematary or whatever, but it is what it is. So overall, it was an okay attempt. I feel though it was competently put together, but obviously there are some odd choices, especially those accents. I'll give this one a 5 out of 10. I actually thought it was relatively entertaining. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.